Welcome everybody, it's Leigh Daniel,
Hello.
and we're here today to talk about how to find love again. And I'm excited to share that Allison Reiner is going to be my co-host, and this is Not Legal Advice series. So I thought that was really interesting because when I started talking about This Is Not Legal Advice, and Allison was going to be first guest, I thought, wow, we have such different perspectives. As Allison's company is Love Forever Again. What did tell us?
Loved again and forever.
Right. And divorce in my company is like not love forever. So totally separate things. And today we have Josie May, and I'm super excited about Josie. But I want to just point out before I introduce her that this is for after the divorce. So keeping in mind that it's this is not legal advice, practical advice for before, during, and after divorce. Josie's is for after. So just
not during.
Keep that in mind. So Josie, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Hi everybody, I'm really happy to be here today. I'm Josie May, and I am a love and dating coach, and I work specifically with women to attract the love that they desire and deserve. And I know it's particularly difficult, especially after divorce, after relationships, to kind of trust that you will find love again, to even believe that. And what I do is support women to kind of really believe that will happen and then help them to do that. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here today.
And Allison, I know that you probably work with people like this a lot, but people will come into my office and they will, and even in the midst of their divorce, they'll start saying, I feel like I'm never going to find love again. I'm never getting married again. I can never trust another person. And what do you say, Allison, when they're in that space?
Yeah, and I hear it a lot on my side too. And for me, the trust starts within. You have to start trusting yourself again, which is why the pre-work is so important. Understanding what went wrong and what was your part in that, so that you can start trusting yourself, listening to your own intuition. If you actually listen to what you were feeling during the relationship, there are all the flags there. And of course, what do? We blink at ourselves, we don't listen to them. But if you actually take yourself back there and work through the process, you start to understand that you do know who you should be with and what the right situation for you is. So you can take that forward into your next relationship. And then I pass them on to you. You do your work, and then you pass them on to Josie, and she takes them through the process of finding that perfect partner.
And I think we all want love, we all, and I think that when people come into my office and that is where they break down, it makes me want to cry just thinking about it, but that's the space where it's not, the loss of the money it's the loss of the love or the feeling like they're loved. And Josie, how do you help people get back to that?
Well, the biggest thing is to look at the love wounds that they have, because obviously divorce is such a big thing. Any breaking up of any relationship is so difficult. And even if you know it's the right thing to do, you have wounds. We all have wounds from that. And it's really important that you heal them and kind of grieve the relationship. Some people are like happy to get divorced, but there's still the grief that actually it didn't work out. Nobody wants to a relationship not to work out, because you wouldn't get one to one in the first place. So a big part of that is healing those wounds from previous relationships, and also kind of supporting the women. I only actually work with women, but supporting the women that I work with to help them to really believe that actually, although that relationship didn't work, it doesn't mean that they cannot have an amazing, loving, fabulous relationship in the future. It's available for them, and it's like helping them to support them to increase their self-love, so they know that they are worth of that. So yeah,
that's just what I was thinking. And I know that Allison, we talked about last week, the self-love, because whether you're a man or you're a woman, and even if it's right, there's that feeling of not good enough. When you get to that point of I didn't do enough, and I wasn't attractive enough, I wasn't, it's all about why couldn't I be enough for that person? And what's the first thing that you would tell somebody else and that said that?
That said, I'm not enough. It's the relationship that's not enough. You know, you need to grow into the relationship, and it's, you know, we don't go into a relationship to find the missing part of us. Mm-hmm. Actually, a lot of us do, and that's the problem. We go in thinking, you know, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. I'm not very outgoing. So if I find someone that's a bit more outgoing than me, then we can have a social life. You know, we have all these, they're not even conscious thoughts, but we take that into the relationship. And then of course, when it falls apart, you're left one half, one shell. And it's building up that again, it's building up yourself so that you are a whole, and you take the whole into the relationship, and between the pair of you, you create something bigger and better. And you support each other to be the best that you can be. So I think it's re-educating people from what to expect from a relationship. That's the first step that I would suggest that you take someone through, understanding what a relationship is about. It's not all love and carriages and babies, and there's a lot more to it that makes it successful, that makes it work, and it's about being two whole people creating something even better for each other.
And because, and Josie, what you mentioned about the wounds, if people, and this is why I said this is definitely the after divorce part, because I see people that are, before the ink is dry, or even before it's signed, that are looking for love. And Josie, what do you think what's the pitfall if you just rush from your marriage into a new relationship quickly?
The thing is, if you haven't had a chance to actually look back on your marriage and see kind of what part you played in that, what part the other person played in that, and also kind of review how you feel about yourself as an individual. Because like Allison said, a relationship doesn't make you whole. You are whole as you are. So having that time to sort of reflect on that, to really increase your self-love, makes such a difference. Because what usually happens if somebody jumps from one relationship to another is the same thing happens again. It might be a different situation that is negative about the relationship, but it's likely to happen again because you've not built yourself up to a position where actually I'm okay as I am on my own.
Right.
Actually, being with someone that I adore will make life just so much better. So there's kind of, I'm okay on my own, but being with someone else, it just adds that extra spark to life kind of thing.
Is there any kind of time frame that either one of you can suggest for? Now, I definitely tell people when they come into my office that they can date if they want to. I'm not the relationship police, because a lot of times the divorce is filed, and at least in our state, in Alabama, after the divorce, post separation, adultery doesn't count towards the reason. They can't use that as this is why the marriage is dissolved. And that's not to say they can't. I don't want to go into the legal advice. That's not to say that they can't use that as an inference if there was a relationship. But if you are separated, and sometimes the divorce can take a year or so, 2 years, and sometimes people want to start dating. And I tell them that I can't tell them what's going to make them happy. I can just tell them what might be best for their case. But is there a time frame? Is there a kind of, like one time I heard you need to grieve a relationship for half as long as the relationship? I mean, is there, because sometimes that would be hard, if it was a 20-year, is there a time frame involved?
I think myself that actually, if you're wanting to date again, I'd say give it at least 3 months before you start dating to let things settle down. But I myself, from my own personal experience, my relationship ended. I was a single mum, and suddenly everything was crazy. And I met my husband 8 months later. Well, some might say that was pretty quick, but it worked for me. So I think you've got to take it on an individual basis about how many wounds you have from your marriage, how long it was. There's lots of different factors, but I think a few months at least. Some people need a lot longer, but at least a few months, I would say. But it's so individual. I think it would be difficult to say that this is a specific amount of time, because that just wouldn't work for everyone.
What about you, Allison?
Exactly the same. I don't think there is a specific amount of time. I think it depends how resilient you are, apart from anything else. Some people bounce back a lot quicker. Some people are also much more willing to be a bit introspective and understand what has to change, where they need to build themselves up, where they need to look at their self-confidence and their sense of self-esteem. And that can take, that can, as soon as you start the process, it's very fast, but it's actually getting to that point that you're willing to look inside, because it's kind of scary, isn't it? What am I going to find in there? What on earth is going to be in there? And of course, there's nothing in there that you don't know about, but it's just, taking the plunge. You made me laugh. I thought, most of my clients have been married for 25 years plus. And if they've got to grieve for half the time, they're going to be...
Exactly. That's the end of it. They'll never get a chance.
They'll never get a chance of love again.
And I said I wasn't going to talk about this, but I started thinking about it when y'all were talking. Sometimes people come in and they want to get a divorce because they have found love again. And, I always advise people to start dating after the divorce and not before the divorce. But if you have fallen in love with somebody else and you're still married, what advice that's something I didn't tell you we were going to talk about, but what advice do you have for that person who's found love again before they've ended the other relationship?
I think it has to start with honesty, doesn't it? It has to start with honesty. And obviously I suppose it depends if it's a marriage that is two people who have actually split up, but they are still married, which happens a lot.
Right.
And there's all sorts of decisions why people decide not to get married. It might be to get a divorce, sorry. It might be a financial thing. It might be an argument thing about why, they don't agree on the reason. So there's lots of different reasons. I'm sure you know a lot more than me, Leigh, but I think so in those situations, if they are dating again and they fall in love, then it's about being honest from the beginning to their partner, and to their ex-husband or wife about what's going on. The thing is,
your current husband or wife.
A current husband or wife. Well, that's it. Yeah, current, because they're still married. The thing is, if they're living together, then that's a very different situation, isn't it? Yep. And that's a relationship built on lies. It's got to be, if it's an affair. And sometimes it works. A lot of times it doesn't. So it wouldn't be something that I would ever recommend. I think if you're at the point where you are going to be having an affair, I think your communication has completely broken down, hasn't it, in your marriage? And again, it's about being honest.
And that's what we talked about last, and I think it keeps coming back to that, because you're looking for that void in your relationship probably, and you find it, and it's usually not because of, I very rarely see a marriage break up because of an affair. The marriage has already come to the point where it's broken, and then the other person is attracted to someone, and then they fall in love. And actually we had somebody that sent in a question: if you fall in love with somebody else, how do you tell your spouse? You ladies have any advice for that person?
Here we go again. As Josie says, it's honesty, but instead of, quite often what happens is you want to just get it out there. The guilt burns you up, especially as women, I think. And I see a lot more than I thought I would, of women who have affairs, women who cheat. And I was quite taken aback when I started working in this field. So you first of all look at the reasons why, and that gives you really the conversation that you're going to have with your partner, or your husband rather. This is what happened, this is where it came from, without attaching any blame to it, and be really clear, as we were talking about last week, being really clear about the outcome, not attaching blame, making sure that the conversation is held in a way that there's no room for the partner to believe that there's a hope still there. If you've made a decision, then it's a case of, I'm having this conversation because I love you as a man that I was married.
Right.
Not, I'm not trying to save this marriage. So honesty always has to be the best policy, but also, making sure that it's done in a way that you're not leaving any room for hope or false hope.
Yeah, and Josie, you were talking about when you said you're being honest with the new partner and you're being honest with the old partner. What is it that you're being honest about? I know about the relationship, but when you say be honest, what is it that you think they should really dig into themselves to be honest about? I have to say, I love not having to answer the questions, just to get to ask.
I suppose the main thing is to be honest about what they want and what they're doing. So if you're married to someone, whether you've split up or not, you're living separately, you're married to them, aren't they? So they've got a right to know that actually if you fall in love with somebody else and you're in a relationship with somebody else, then I think that you're husband or wife has got a right to know that. And if you want a divorce, to tell them that as soon as possible, because otherwise, like Allison said, some people live in hope, or they're sat around waiting for somebody to maybe change their mind. Or divorce isn't easy, is it? It's not always, both people don't always agree. Sometimes they do, which makes it easier, but often that's not always the case. So I think just kind of about exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, just to give that respect to both parties that you're with, your partner at the moment and your ex-husband or wife, because these are both people that you've been in relationship with, so they deserve your respect, really. And I think that's the main thing, communication. And communication, we talk about it all the time. Whilst we say, communicate, it can be one of the most difficult things to do. These are difficult conversations that can be really tricky. It's a conversation that people say, this is one question I get a lot. How do I tell somebody I want a divorce? And, there are a few ways. I mean, one is just to say, I need to talk to you, which we all know is the death knell, right? We all, I haven't dated it significantly in a long time, but I remember when I did, if they ever said, we need to talk, that was it. So we need to talk. You can send a letter. You can send an email. You can send a letter from your lawyer. You can send a divorce papers and say, this is what I want. You can tell them that I want a divorce. The papers are at my lawyer's office. You can have them serve with the divorce papers and not tell them anything. There are lots and lots of different ways. The best, obviously, is to communicate. But if they just feel they cannot do that, the most important thing is just do it. Just do something. Because I think that, like you said, the respect and what we first said, anybody can find love again. When somebody comes in and they're having an affair and the other person, it's just that they've grown apart, I try to tell them, look, that they deserve love too, right? And as long as you're not being honest with them, then you're not giving them a chance to find love. You're tying them up. You don't love them, but you're not letting them go to find love again. And if they do have that wound, that's one of the worst. Yeah. The worst wounds. So Josie, if somebody has been cheated on and they found out, how do they start repairing that wound? And there's so many of my clients have had this situation where they've been cheated on and feel what happens is often is we internalize that actually. So what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? How could I have been different? And it's not about you as an individual. It's about your relationship. It's not even necessarily about the other person as an individual. It's about the relationship and what wasn't going right in there. And it's not about you. So it all comes down to self-love and feeling that you actually deserve to be with someone that will treat you without cheating on you or kind of being unfaithful. And that's all about feeling whole, but not just that, but also believing, because a lot of the women that I work with feel that men are cheats, and that's kind of the belief that they have, and it's a limiting belief that's not actually true. Of course there are some men that are cheats, and you might have been cheated on 4 times by different men, but not all men are cheats. And it's about supporting them to actually really believe that, because it can be a real core belief. If that's what you've experienced, and that's kind of, and if you look for something, that's what you'll find.
Exactly. And so people come into my office and they'll say, what a bastard, or can I say that on Facebook? Anyway, they'll say, they'll really be mad and say that person is so bad. And I think, what do you tell them, Allison? I think that's just going to lend itself to them finding another person that is just as bad, because they put so much energy into hate. How can you, Allison or Josie, how can you dissolve the hate?
One of the things that I'm quite firm about when people come to talk to me to start with, I want to hear all this. I want to hear the hate. I want to hear the anger. Because you need to get it out. And, we see so many things now, and it's all about, don't blame the other person and don't this and don't that. And a lot of people take that on as, I can't voice what I'm feeling, so they push it down, they get it, they keep it inside. But for me, it's so important to voice it, to get it out, to hear how it sounds, so that you can deal with it. You can only deal with it, you can only change it when you know what it is, when you know, when you hear it out in the air, when you share it with somebody else. And then you can start to question, but is he really a bastard? Let's all of us use the word, and then if we're banned, is he really a bastard? Is she really a bitch? Is that absolutely true? And then you can start to question round about it, and and reframe it, and show the relationship and show that person in a different light. Because you're absolutely right. If you go, if you come in with that energy and you leave with that energy, that's exactly what you're going to attract next time. There is no alternative, because you've not changed. Therefore, you're not going to change who you attract. And I think that's what Josie really does, is she helps people change their perspective. Therefore, they can't attract the same person that they attracted last time, last week, last month. They just can't, because they're not the same person. But we have to let all that anger and hurt and, as many bad words as you want out, to free them up to look at the truth of the situation. Otherwise, and I'm saying that as somebody who, a reformed good girl, I pushed it all down and suffered really badly, because, I couldn't tell people how I was feeling. What would people think of me, that I could have those sort of thoughts? So I'm all for, get it out, as many bad words as possible, then see what it is, and then start to shift it.
Yeah, because you can get it all out, hopefully not in your lawyer's office.
Yeah. Hopefully that's what we're doing here. We're trying to stop that. We're trying to save them the trouble.
I've seen lots of yelling and lots of that. But we have to get it out, but we also can't, in my opinion, we can't carry that hate.
Yeah.
And I know that maybe you just have to, I don't know, you just have to develop some neutrality, because if you carry that hate into the new relationship, then Josie, what can happen to somebody that has done that?
It's toxic. It's toxic. So you're going in already with this kind of belief system that men are bastards, or, that I'm...
Oh, we've all said it.
Yeah, we've all said it now. So you're kind of going in, and basically you're going in and making things happen that don't need to. You're kind of going in, and it's just toxic. It's toxic. So it's so important. And I agree with Allison. You need to get it out. And what I say is with my clients is, get it out, and then we'll clear it out. Let it out, and then clear it away. And I'm not into men bashing or any of that, but I think you need to kind of get your feelings out, like Allison said, and then inspect them and see, actually, is this true? And then clear them out the way, so that they're not there for your next relationship.
Yeah, I think acknowledge. I had a client yesterday afternoon that she had the most beautiful green eyes, and she and I tried to tell her that I thought how pretty she was, and she just started crying immediately. And she has been living in such an abusive. Her husband has a mental health issue, and he's got a mood disorder. I don't know what that is, but anyway, and so there's lots of yelling and cursing and belittling and calling her fat and those things. And so she said, nobody's ever going to want me. And it broke my heart, because after being in a relationship where you condition yourself, and you think that after a long time, you just think that you are that person, that the way the person, treats you. And so sometimes those people have a hard time loving themselves enough to leave the relationship. So Josie, can people work with you if they're in that space?
Definitely.
Does it really need to find love again?
Definitely. And that's the biggest thing that the biggest part of my program is working with women to increase their self-love in relationships. Because often a lot of my clients do have self-love in every other area. They've got a good career, they've got a good family, but when it comes to relationships, it's just not there. They don't have that self-love and that belief that actually they as an individual can have an amazing relationship. And so the biggest part of my program is supporting them to build up that self-love, and particularly if they've been in an emotional abuse, is so detrimental to people's self-esteem. And women, like you said, who have been kind of told day after day, then it becomes a belief that that's actually the truth. So it's a slowly process, but once being out of that environment helps immensely. So the fact that they've not got somebody telling them every day also helps. And then support with a coach or through friends and family to help build up the self-esteem. It's so important. And yeah, definitely you can have a complete turnaround and really love yourself again.
Yeah, and
or for the first time.
Allison, what are some steps that you think somebody could take, Allison, if they want to find love again? And then we'll let Josie tell us. If you are watching and you want to find love again, hopefully you're divorced already. But if you are watching and you want to find love again, what are some things that you would start with? I'm not going to be a good person to say this because I need Josie's help, seriously. And if you're watching this, please don't send me any messages to your man telling me you want to go out with me. I'm not right now. Anyway, Allison, so what are some steps?
The first thing I was thinking when Josie was speaking is this is one situation that you would really suggest somebody doesn't rush into another relationship immediately. And it's exactly the situation that women do, because the fact that somebody shows any interest in them at all, they rush, they grab at it, and it's the very moment to take that step back and work on yourself. So in this situation, definitely you take as much time. You go and speak to somebody like Josie. You build up that sense of self, that sense, the esteem that you need, the belief. Because a lot of the time, the passage between where you are now and the person that you have to be to really believe that you deserve to be loved, to the end of the earth, and you deserve to have a relationship or a life even that you're dreaming of. There's a lot of work involved in that. There's a lot of affirmations, there's a lot of affirmations, and there's really a lot of building yourself up. Looking in the mirror, these are things that, and I don't know if you've ever tried to do this. Have you ever tried to look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're beautiful or that you love yourself? It took me such a long time to be able to do that, and to believe it when I was saying it. So these are little steps that I'm sure that Josie has as part of her program of action. But the very first thing for me is decide what it is you want. Mm-hmm. Take it. You don't need to know how you're going to get it. You don't have any idea on how you're going to get to that place that you want to be, but allow yourself to dream it. And once you've got the dream, you can put something, you can put the pathway in place. That's, that for me, that's the starting point. It's always got to be the starting point. What about you, Josie?
What do you think, Josie? What's the first step that somebody wants to find love again? I'll go run and do it as soon as you tell me.
Again, very similar to what Allison said, it's about getting really clear on your desires. So too often when women come to me and talk about love, they say, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want a guy like that, I don't want a relationship like this. I'm like, okay. So what do you want? And literally people spend so much time thinking about what they don't want and instead forget what actually they do want. So a big part of it, I think, massive part of it, is actually getting clear on what you want. And I don't just mean in love, I mean holistically. Mm-hmm. What do you want in your life? And especially if you've just come out of divorce and your whole life's upside down, are you in the career you want? Spiritually, are you where you want to be? Health-wise, are you where you want to be? And actually, it's about kind of getting really clear on what they want for everything, not just a relationship, because a relationship's not the be-all and end-all. As we said, it's just another great part of life, but it's about being holistic and everything. So what I say is for women that I work with to get really clear on what they want in every area of their life and start working.
Is any one area more important?
No, I don't think it is. Like, it might be for you as an individual. So some people might not care so much about they might be happy in the career already and not care so much about changing the career. But again, if they're already happy in it, that's great. But it's the more rounded you are, and if you know what you want in every area, then you become more whole as a person. You feel better. Having a goal and knowing what you want to work towards is so important, and massive for self-esteem, which helps in you getting into the relationship you want. So yeah, just be clear about your desires. And that includes relationships, definitely includes relationships.
And I'll tell you something that really irritates me is when women, generally I would say it's women, say that they want a rich husband or they want somebody to take care of them. I have to say that since I've been working since I was 16, several jobs, and when somebody says, I want somebody to take care of me, or I want a rich husband, they're not even thinking about the person. They're thinking about, how can I get me taken care of? And what do you, if somebody says that to you, well, first of all, I'll say that's ridiculous. But Allison, you know, what would you say to somebody who said, that's one of the things that I want?
It's not taking responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, the whole practice is being responsible for your own happiness, your own life, your own well-being, all the things that Josie spoke about. If you're looking for somebody to do that, you're handing your power away before you've even started. You know, because if someone's looking after you financially at your wish, you know, I'm been in the situation where my husband's had to look after me financially because I was off studying to do something else. You know, and that was an agreement we came to. But, you know, if you go in with that attitude, you're also handing so many other parts of your power away. You know, they have you dancing like a puppet, and that's probably why the relationships have fallen apart. So yeah, that's not taking responsibility for yourself. And if that's the case, you're never going to get to that happy place. You're never going to get to that place where you feel that you are in control of your own life, that you're powerful, that you have a purpose in the world. Right. Yeah, maybe that's just my opinion on it, but I'm really, on every aspect of our life, we can ask for help. We need to ask for help. It's so important to be able to reach out and ask for help where we need it, but not to hand over responsibility.
What do you think, Josie? Because I just had a client recently who said, I just feel like I'm a paycheck. I just feel, you know, and he just keeps saying, I feel so used. I feel so, I feel, you know, and there was never any love. There was only, can you give me this? Can you buy me this? I feel so used. And so from the opposite side of the coin, from the man who has been, I'm not going to say targeted, even though I actually know that happens. I mean, I actually know women that go onto dating websites and put that they want somebody with a certain amount of income, and they'll go to websites where they think people with money might hang out. I mean, unfortunately it happens, and I see people getting manipulated, and I've seen that happen. And you know, we don't want to women bash either, but you know, what do you, if somebody says that's on my list, they have to be rich? Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that, Josie?
And that does happen, and I'll question that about, okay, what does that mean? Are they looking to somebody to be rich so that a relationship can save them? Again, a relationship will never save you. It will never, you know, that's going in with the wrong reason. As we talked about before, it's about going in wholly. It might be that they want a man who's financially secure. I know that was on my list, but it's very different than a man who's going to completely be rich and look after me, you know, and I don't have to do anything, kind of thing. So I always ask, what do you want from a relationship? And then what are you going to offer? What are you going to give? Because actually, how are you going to attract this man? He's giving you this. What are you going to give? And that really makes people stop and think, then actually, what, you know, am I the kind of woman that this kind of man would want to be with? What am I going to give? Because relationships are a two-way street, isn't it? It's a two-way street. So yeah, it is something that I hear a lot. And I think sometimes that's women, it's again, like Allison said, it's giving your power away. And it's looking for relationship to be to save you. And no relationship will ever save you. The only person that's going to save you is yourself. And that's about being self-assured and loving yourself enough and stable in just who you are on your own. So
if somebody doesn't have, I know we're going long, but this is really interesting. If somebody doesn't have any idea of what they should want in a relationship, let's say that they've never had a love, because I think that's the hardest. If you've never had a rewarding, fulfilling, supportive relationship, how do you even know what to ask for? So if you had to think of something that somebody could envision or could want for themselves, what would be some examples? Allison, I'll start with you.
Goes back again, I think we spoke about this last week. For me, it's having that idea in your mind. It doesn't need to be the one that you end up with, but just getting clear on. And you know, one of the things that I realized that I did in my life only after hearing Anela better talking was, you know, writing that list of requirements. And I don't mean, you know, he's got to be tall, dark, handsome, and rich, but you know, how do I want to spend my time? How do I want to have arguments? Do I want to of course we want to have arguments, we need to have them, they're healthy, but how are they going to pan out? How am I going to feel safe to express myself? How much time do I need on my own? Because that's a big thing for me as well. How much time do we need to spend together? Do we have to holiday together? You start with these sort of questions, and then you create that sort of that ideal, if you like, but it's not fixed, because you can change it at any moment. The important thing is to get clear on where you want to start heading, and knowing that you can turn direction or turn corners at any moment.
Yeah. Josie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, again, it's really so important to get clear. And sometimes some of the women I work with don't know, and they don't know. So what I do then is I support them to ask questions. So for example, I'll say, what if you did know? Tell me about a relationship that you've seen that was good, that looked good, or in a movie. What was it about that relationship? And sometimes we have to go back to basics that much, because they really haven't felt it or don't know it. So exactly. Once they get on a roll, it starts coming more and more. But sometimes it can be so difficult. I've had clients that say, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. So we've really had to go back to like movies, or tell me about a movie where you saw love, and, really kind of that kind of detached to bring it closer in. So yeah, but once you get clear, it's easier to get clearer and clearer and clearer. So you can start off big and get in sort of more details as you kind of go along and get into the flow of it. It's a practice. It's about practicing visualizing, about practicing having a more positive idea of relationships and how it can be.
And so what are some movies that you would suggest? I wanted to go Netflix tonight.
Oh, do you know the movie that I always love is and it's a cheesy one, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I
love that one.
I love it. I know. So it's so funny because she's obviously trying to get rid of him, but obviously it just shows that sometimes, I know there's a lot of dating rules and what you should and shouldn't do. And I love in that movie that she kind of follows all them, but still they fall in love. So, I am a hopeless romantic, honestly. I am such a romantic. Obviously, I'm a love coach, so I should be. But, love is amazing. It's not as smooth as the fairy tales tell you, but it's an amazing thing that brings so much more joy to your life, I think. So can do. But I suppose what's important is that you are happy and love yourself before you kind of get into that relationship.
And what about you, Allison? Can you think of any movies?
I'm not a great movie watcher. I was actually writing notes. That's one I've not seen.
That's a great one.
Yeah. I can't say that I get any inspiration from movies. It's not coming to me at the moment. Working on myself is more about reading books. All the self-help books. So that because it's very difficult to understand. We're talking about self-love. A lot of people, we hear it everywhere, and a lot of people don't even understand what that means. They get so confused with self-love and self-care. They're so, self-care is part of it, but they're so completely different. So it's really getting to understand what self-love is, which for me is knowing yourself, accepting yourself, and liking yourself. And being prepared to put in the effort, investing in yourself, financially to an extent, but also emotionally, investing in your own well-being. That's all part of of it, and that's the thing that's going to take you to that next level where you can look and you can say, yes, I deserve that love that I'm dreaming about.
Yeah, and I see, and the reason why I see that people have the struggle with not understanding self-love or not being able to envision it is because it's a family of origin issue. They come from an abusive family, and they end up in a relationship where there's substance abuse or there's more abuse because they're used to that, and they don't even know that there's a different way. They don't even know. So like you said, books and sometimes people, when I say, they're like, well, they just shoved me or they just did this. And I say, that's abusive. You shouldn't be hit. You shouldn't be shoved. That's not okay. And they don't even know that that's not okay. They make, because they don't know. So I think that books and movies and coaches like the two of you are amazing help. And so we're going to wrap it up and just tell everybody where they can find you, Josie.
So my website is www.stepuptolove.com. And I've also got a Facebook page, stepuptolove.com, and a Facebook group called Dating Goddesses.
Oh,
so, yeah, I know.
Dating Goddesses.
I know. Now, if that's not about self-love, I don't know what is.
I like it. I like it a lot. What about you, Allison?
You can find me at AllisonReiner.com, and that's Allison with 2 L's, or my Facebook page, which is Allison Reiner. Or again, I've got a lovely Facebook group, which is Loved Again and Forever. That's so.
And you can find both Josie and Allison on Project Positive Change. And I am Leigh. You can find me at LeighDanielLaw.com. And or you can find me at Project Positive Change. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Josie and Allison. And let's hope that everybody goes and finds love today and are already divorced. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.